Hey there, everybody. Welcome to week 3. This week's a little busy in the assessment side because we're sort of cleaning up some stuff from last week and then moving on to the topics of this week. So hopefully you're kind of caught up, staying keeping everything in order. Um, yeah, it's sort of the midterm as well. So this week is busy, and then the next few weeks I think we'll be a little less busy. So we only have 3 more weeks to go. So keep plodding along there, plodding along. Um, yeah, So one thing is I returned your architecture write-ups. I looked those over. Good job. A lot of really cool spots, pieces of architecture that people picked out. Um, One sort of comment I made, a lot of people's my comments are available in the assignment. You can take a look at them, but make sure we're the idea of is applying what we're learning to other parts of history, right? So when I say the age of expansion, what I really was looking for is how does it relate to the course materials that we've covered in the context of the age of expansions. So people did a good job of that, like say for things of Japan, like Tokugawa isolationism, or sites on the Atlantic that talked about the Atlantic trade, which the term there would be triangular trade. So again, the idea is as we kind of move through the semester, being able to utilize some of the ideas and concepts that we learned historically and apply them to our to our sort of repertoire, our toolkit of thinking. So I think the artifact write-up was a good example of that. When I say age of expansion, again, a lot there's some that was like the sort of vague ideas of it, which sort of sound I don't know, like kind of just very vague. So we can get through that vague concepts through just using course materials, referring to things that we've learned or that you've learned, right? So just keep that in mind. Actually, that'll again, just a reminder of that with these. That's kind of what I'm going to be looking for in quiz 2 and these 5 Ws. Again, implementing concepts that we've learned about in class is really what I want. And again, in this one, the 5 Ws, got to use 2 terms from the review guide. So utilizing those terms, making them, implementing them in your answers. So and again, the more you can show me that you're engaging with the material, the more the happier I will be, and the happier you, and the more you will learn. So just kind of keep going on with that. So and again, this week we're looking at 2 sort of the 18th, 19th centuries transition. One, the beginning of this idea of nations. And if you've listened to that lecture, I really emphasize that nations are a construct. They're something that we have created. They're a state system. They're relatively new in the concept of sort of humanity. So we're still working through. I mean, I think that the 21st century, if you look around, some of the issues that we're facing is still this idea of nation. We're still working through that, as we'll see that some nations came up. The United States sort of as a modern nation that we is sometimes seen as the first modern nation. Things with constitutions, bills of rights. This is where I kind of want you to be thinking about when you found your nation. What kind of political system do you want? What kind of economic system do you want? What kind of rights do you want citizens have rights? There's nations where citizens have very few rights. So all these things are still kind of being working through. And as if you zoom out world historically, a lot of different nations have implemented different forms of how they organize their states. So that's kind of what this sort of founded nation is just you thinking through that and seeing sort of the complexities of that. I think as you sort of try to define your nation, again, I want it to be fictional. Don't just give me a history of the United States, but grounded in history, sort of historical fiction. Utilizing the things we've learned and applying them to your context. So, and have some fun with it too. I mean, if you want to, it doesn't have to, try to kind of just think through these processes of nation building, which is ongoing. There's new nations that are coming up. I think South Sudan is the newest nation, and there's still a lot of nations will be a big part of this course going forward. Let's just leave it at that, because you got the United States, the Americas, they kind of break away. These new nations form in Central South America, Canada, different paths to nationhood, and then what that also creates is imperialism. That as the Americas move away and become independent, the need for resources, raw materials of fuel, things like industrialization shifts to places like Asia and Africa, and then you get this imperialism, this more direct control, right? It's not just joint stock companies being, and working within India or China, right? But actual like military interventions, direct control, direct rule happens in 1857 in India, happens with the Opium Wars in China, and then also in the Berlin Conference in Africa, where it's sort of split apart. So you have this imperialism, this tools of empires we talk about, but also imperialized. What is the experience of that? And I think I give a lecture about of Hawaii, right? That is very much. I mean, you can kind of see the imperialism very quickly, both political imperialism, economic imperialism, cultural imperialism, influence of of the new religions, new ideas, and then new economic systems with plantation worlds, private property, and then ultimately direct control, the annexation of Hawaii. So he's sort of speeded up. So I think if you know about Hawaiian history, you're sort of familiar with this idea of imperialism, imperialized, and that happens on sort of a global scale. So yeah, and then another aspect of that is another second diaspora that sort of that with these imperial worlds, a lot of people move around. People from Europe go to their imperial holdings, but also people within empires move around. A lot of people from South Asia go to Africa. Gandhi being one of them, we'll learn about later. So there's people moving throughout these spheres. So yeah. So that's kind of the topics, and then the assignments, the discussion post. So the first one is from sort of last week. We didn't really get to it because we were looking at a quiz. So review sort of these movements that bring about vaulting to modernity. I'll look at those. I'll look over those tomorrow, so that gives you time to give your 2 responses by 4:00 today. And then Found a Nation by Thursday, and then a quiz on Friday. It's a little bit busy, but it's the summer. That's the summer dynamic. So great. Have a good rest of your week.